We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Welcome, welcome. We are podcasting again. And how is everybody? Everyone just said, we are great. All right, awesome. So, next to me is...
I'm Tim.
And Chad.
So today we're going to talk about Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey basically started what's called the Church of Satanism. And he started that in 1966. And I think the very first time I heard of Anton LaVey was when I was at Zach Bagans' Paranormal Museum in Las Vegas. And the first room we went into was one of those rooms that was really cool, and I wish we could have taken pictures, but, they don't let you. But that room was just chock full of stuff. You could spend 2 days in that room and probably not see everything that's there. But in that room, he has one of Anton LaVey's, it's called the Satanistic Bible. And that Satanistic Bible is what codifies this, it canonizes this religion. And one of the things I found interesting about this religion is, it's called Satanism. So what do you think? You think, oh, they worship Satan. But they don't. And they say we want to be separated. We are not devil worshippers. And, the joke is, if you're not devil worshippers, maybe you shouldn't call yourself Satanists because that's what you think. But they're more, if someone were to say to me, how would you describe Anton LaVey? They also call it LaVeyanism. How would you describe that, in a brief summary? And Chad actually said this, but my brief summary would be eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. It's a materialistic, meaning, that everything fundamental is made up of matter and substance and nature. And not nature like druid nature, but just they don't believe necessarily in an afterlife. They don't even necessarily believe in supernatural powers like God or even Satan himself. They don't really believe that he exists.
Although they do practice forms of magic and incantations.
Yes, but they view Satan or Lucifer as more figurative. And
it's more, like a metaphor.
Yeah.
They don't worship him as a deity. They don't really believe in Satan. They don't really believe in God.
Nope.
And they kind of believe that heaven and hell both exist on earth at the same time.
Yep. So they don't believe in like a body and a soul. Like most Christians would believe that, when you pass away, your soul leaves your body because that would be a supernatural kind of a deal. They're like, nope, that doesn't work. They think that even things of a mental state and your consciousness are a result of material actions. So going back to Satan and thinking of him as figurative, the way they see him is as a positive archetype. And if you know about archetypes in literature, that's what they view him as a positive archetype. And what he would represent would be pride, carnality, and what they would call enlightenment. And, to me, enlightenment is very, very broad. What enlightens somebody might enlighten somebody else, or, so whatever you view as enlightenment.
Rebellion also.
Exactly. So what they did is they embraced a symbol of Satan as a symbol of defiance. What they defied was the Abrahamic religions. And what's an Abrahamic religion? Anything pretty much that believes in the Bible and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that kind of a thought process.
Even the Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Muslims, Jews, Christians. They really harp on the Christians, though.
He set it up more as of like a anti-religion as opposed to like a religion.
Right. They're very anti-Christian, and yes, I like what you said. An anti-religion. They do practice magic. He did not like people that said black magic and white magic, because to him that was like, oh, Christian, good, white magic, black, dark, evil. He didn't like that. They called it a higher, and I could get this wrong because I'm not a Satanist, but I think it was a higher magic and a lesser magic. I know, shocking, huh? They called it a higher magic and a lesser magic. And one of the things in the higher magic was sex. And he was very much, they actually called him the Hugh Hefner of proto-goth kids back in the 1960s and early 70s, very much into being topless. A lot of topless women in his home. That's why he was called the Hugh Hefner. And interestingly enough, Jane Mansfield was purportedly one of his followers, and she was also very free about being topless. That was something that didn't bother her, and that's something that kind of connected them, because they had that, that same belief that there was nothing wrong with a topless woman. So one of the things that they criticized as far as being anti-Christian was they said that Christians suppressed humanity, suppressed natural instinct, and what the Satanists do is they encourage do what feels good, do what you want. We think that the Christians, with all their rules, they're being irrational, and they're telling you shouldn't do this thing, which is opposite, because when I was reading this, it made me think in Christianity, which is what I follow, it teaches in the Bible to put off the natural man, and the way I interpret that is putting in your life some stop gaps, discipline, watch yourself if you're able to discipline yourself, and they just went against that. They're like, no, and I tend to cheer for the Christian side of life, but what the Satanists believe is just kind of, if it feels good, do it.
Well, yeah, they were about living life, more or less, but they still had rules and restrictions. They weren't like complete like nihilists or anything like that.
Right.
They still wanted you to do things within the law. So it wasn't just go out and like, if you felt like burning someone's house down, do it. Like they didn't, it was just whatever made you happy, as long as it was within the law. Like they didn't promote illegal activities. And then you talk about sex being a big part of the religion. He was very okay with people being gay, transgender, whatever you wanted to do, as long as it was with another consensual adult.
Right. Yeah, they aren't into the the bestiality and the animal sacrifice, and they don't get into that kind of creepy stuff. They did their own creepy things.
Yeah, they did their own creepy things. Some of the rumors that they did was like that they did human sacrifice, and like the ultimate sacrifice is if you could like cause a woman to go in labor and then kill the baby as it came out. Then that was stuff that was rumored that they did. But in this documentary I was watching, Anton actually said they value life very much so, and they didn't like breed babies or anything just to sacrifice them. They actually wanted people to live and be happy and serve their purpose in life. They didn't want they didn't really want you to cause harm to others. They wanted you to, they try to teach like love and compassion, but on the same side of that, or the flip side of that, they were firm believers in an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. He actually said in one of his sermons, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, you slap them back on the left cheek.
Right.
Yeah, I even heard it where he said, if you get slapped, punch them hard. One up it. Don't just, it's not an equal retribution necessarily. And I do think that one of the things with their thing is they really do believe in a, what's the word? The idea that they're better than others. That of, selection of the fittest, those kinds of things. Egoism.
Did say there was some egoism.
And, that they are, superior in intellect and to the other people, and therefore kind of the Darwinistic selection of the fittest kind of things applies to them.
Right.
Well, it's funny. Do you know what they considered their number one sin to be?
What's that?
Being stupid.
I like that, actually.
They had other sins as well. There was 9 sins that they had, but the number one sin was being stupid. Now, they were okay if you were ignorant, because that's completely different. You can teach someone to not be ignorant about something, but to be completely stupid was against a religion.
Isn't there a saying that says you can't fix stupid?
Yes. They believed that by being a quote-unquote moron, you were susceptible to being influenced by other people and not being able to make decisions on your own. Basically, someone comes and tells you this is how it is, and you just go, okay. They consider that being stupid. They were kind of into like science and just how things work, and they wanted you to educate yourself and be an intelligent person.
Right. The little thing that I wrote down just kind of in my notes, it says they had a philosophy based on individualism, egoism, and they also coupled that with social Darwinism and anti-egalitarianism. I have a hard time saying that word. They're very much into free thinking. And he didn't like Christianity. He thought it was corrupt. And so
he
wanted to fix what he felt like were the corruptions.
So according to him, there's actually no evidence of this happening. There are no records of him actually doing this, but apparently when he was 16, he dropped out of high school and went and joined the circus and worked in the cages with the lions. And then eventually got to the point where he actually played the calliope and he played the organ. Now, what he said would happen, or he'd be in nightclubs and stuff as well, and what he said he would see was on Saturday night, at like these burlesque shows and these shows that weren't necessarily Christian or religious, he'd see all these men there, and then the very next day he'd see all these same men in church, and he just kind of thought that was like not cool, which it isn't. So that's kind of what started him on his path of like being anti-religion, and so that's what led him up to forming the Church of Satan and writing the Satanic Bible and like the Satanic Rituals and all the other books that he wrote.
Yeah, he's got 5 books, and what I found was interesting is after he died, his daughter and his companion, vowed to carry on his religion and his works, and they did up to a certain point. I think up until 2000, because he died in 97, and I think they carried it on until 2003, and then they passed it on to some of the upper echelon peoples in the church. But the new guy who took it over said he wanted to really go back to the basics and be a little bit more, because I guess it got kind of lenient, and they weren't as by the book. And the new guy said, no, we got to just follow the law to the T. And so if you want to know what those laws are to the T, go check out the Satanic Bible and his other 4 books, and that lays it out. But he really ran around in the Hollywood world. I don't know for 100% certain, but supposedly Sammy Davis Jr. was a follower of Satanist, of the LaVeyanism, Satanism, as was Jane Mansfield and Marilyn Manson. Now they said, so Marilyn Monroe died before he started his church, but they said that she probably would have been very interested in it because apparently she was very dark, and I guess that she kind of knew these people
Some
that ran
of that
around,
materialistic,
in these circles.
See, he also claims that he, while working at a nightclub, actually had an affair with Marilyn Monroe before she became famous. Now, again, there's no evidence to support this. It's just his word. But according to the club owner, and I believe according to Marilyn Monroe and her agents and all that stuff, that never actually happened. But according to Anton LaVey, he actually had an affair with Marilyn Monroe.
I think a lot of people said they had affairs with Marilyn Monroe.
That's probably true.
and I think a lot of people probably did have.
I think a lot of people probably did.
Marilyn Monroe.
But this is before she became famous, supposedly. So
Right.
there's actually one of the things I read where a lot of the stuff they think he said that he did throughout his life, and I don't know for sure because I obviously wasn't there. They think a lot of it he just made up.
But the lion was true.
The lion was true.
He did have a lion living in his home with him as a cub. And
I did see that in the video. Like I think it was a video he actually made.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing some weird voice talking as the lion. You can actually see him playing with his lion cub.
Yeah, so when I do research, I like to get the facts, but I like to find fun stuff too, just kind of off the beaten path. And I printed it off, and I had envisioned like 3 or 4 pages of facts. So I've got like...
Did you bring a novel?
I know, I've got like 20 pages, and it's front and back of...
42.
I've got like 42 pages.
She's printing this up, and I'm saying, when is this going to stop?
He's like, what are you printing? I'm like, oh, all of his 5 works. No, but one of the things that I found as I was running around was there's this... I had to dig around for it because the first website I found, I read just enough to get interested, and it said, if you want to read more, you must subscribe. And I was like, dang it. So, and you missed my fist shaking right there. You could probably hear it in my voice, but I was like, dang it. So I had to kind of cruise around. But there's a theory that he killed Jane Mansfield. And the idea behind this is, she's hanging around with him a lot and, following his teachings. And there's actually a picture that I'm holding here of him and Jane Mansfield. And he apparently put a curse on her. And she was in several car accidents before the one that ultimately killed her, and actually decapitated her, if I read it right. But her life was very complicated in and of itself, and some people wonder if just her dealings with him and the reasons her life was so complicated was because of this curse and because she was hanging out with him. And again, a lot of the stuff in this novel that I printed out, it even says a lot of these things we can't tell if they're true or not. He said them. He said he did this, he said he did that, but you don't know if it was necessarily true or if it was just his egotism, kicking in. But it was really interesting on how it says there were 6 automobile accidents before the fatal 7th, the one that many believe decapitated Mansfield. It says it didn't, but after that happened, truck manufacturers installed a safety feature called the Mansfield bar shortly after her accident. So that was interesting. But he was kind of a kooky guy, and I kind of have to hand it to him. I mean, he took his part in this, and he ran with it. He really liked the fact that that people called him the devil. He really played up that Satan image, and he loved walking around with his bald head and his cape, and he had, if you've never seen a picture of him, he's got just the quintessential devil mustache and goatee. And if you hear him talk, his voice is, to me, it's, I don't know, I imagine Satan having a really low voice, but I don't know, it just kind of, you listen to him and it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a Satan voice. He had a pet lion. He had pet tarantulas. He loved to play eerie organ music for hours, and he'd play it really loud so people on his street could hear it.
Yeah, he was a professional organist and did that at carnivals and in burlesque things, and yeah, that some of the videos that they show of him, he's in his music room, and there are keyboards all around, even more so than my monitors.
That's a lot of keyboards. Chad's got like 5 monitors in his room, in his den. So, and this is the thing, okay, and I'm going to be careful because I don't want people going, Raven thinks that Satanism is cool. No, I do not. But his house sounds like Halloween, and he just lived this all the time. So his family home was a late 1800s Victorian house, and it was kind of tucked back. I mean, he had, chain link fence around it, but it sounds like it was kind of tucked back with a lot of overgrowth, and that just in and of itself is cool. But inside, the entire house was painted black inside, and all the ceilings were red. He had pentagrams all over and satanic statuettes. I don't know that I could deal with that. But he had daggers and skulls on the walls, and he had a coffin on the wall with a plastic owl perched on top. It just sounds like...
This isn't normal?
He just lived in a Halloween house, and it's like, I wouldn't go to some of those extremes, but how cool would it be just to have your house be Halloween all the time? I would totally have Halloween all the time.
We can make that happen.
Well, when I go to put away the Halloween decorations, there's a 1 or 2 that it's like, I think this is an everyday decoration. Not many, but some. So we talked about his 5 books. He was actually quite accomplished, with everything that he did. He wrote 5 books. 1 is actually banned in Singapore. And I thought, banned in Singapore? And because it said it was promoting Satanism and degrading Christianity. And I thought, well, duh, that didn't take a lot of thought to figure that one out, did it?
So it was banned for doing what the religion does.
Yes. But,
Okay.
but only one of the books did. So apparently the other 4 don't.
Well, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I know. I couldn't figure.
That's pretty much what the whole religion is
I couldn't
promoting itself and
And-
denouncing
Denigrating
Christianity.
everything else.
Yeah, so I read that and I thought, okay. And you would think that all 4 of them would be banned, or all 5 of them would be banned. It's like, why is one banned but the other 4 are okay?
What about his 3 albums? Because he did write music as well.
He did. He wrote music. One of his musical recordings was called Satan Takes a Holiday. That was the album. And on there is Honolulu Baby and Answer Me. And they named those specifically, so apparently they're famous. I don't know if I've heard these before. I'll have to go check them out on YouTube. Didn't have time.
Okay, that sounds. We should do
So-
that. We'll post them.
So there you go. If you want a good Satanistic music in your house, Satan Takes a Holiday, Honolulu Baby, and Answer Me.
Okay.
I don't know that I would put Honolulu Baby and Satan together. They don't sound the same.
But it's not about Satan.
True.
So
But it's on Satan Takes a Holiday, so apparently he went to Honolulu.
it's possible.
That's maybe where he took the holiday.
Honolulu Baby. Can't go there now, though.
Maybe it's not the baby. Maybe it's a hey baby.
Could be. Hey, Topless Baby.
Yeah.
They do that.
Hey baby. You know. Kind of like Joey does in Friends. How you doing?
How you doing?
It could be that kind of baby. Don't push the maybe, baby. That's from Major Payne. With
It's been so long since I've seen that.
I know I go off on tangents.
That's okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, is Satanism something that I would get into? No. But I do have to kind of hand it to him that he didn't like something, and so he sought out his own thing.
I think he was 33 when he did this because he was born in 1930 in Chicago, Illinois, before his family moved to San Francisco.
Yep.
He did claim at one point that he also worked for the San Francisco Police Department as a psychic, helping solve crimes, and like those 800 numbers that would come in, they would refer them to Anton LaVey, which I think is cool. He actually changed his name from Howard
Yeah.
to Anton because who's going to follow a guy who's forming a church
His name's Howard.
whose name was Howard?
At the Church of Satan, and it's
I think
Howard.
originally the first name was the Church of the Trapezoid or something like
yeah,
that.
that's what it originally was, which would make more sense since they
But
don't
then he
actually
became
worship Satan.
he became Anton and Anton Xander LaVey and started the Church of Satan.
Yep. So I'm just going to read you some of these facts because they're interesting.
I like the quote that's on the top of that.
Where was it?
I got it right here.
Okay.
So this is kind of how he would sum up Satanism. This was actually a quote from Anton LaVey saying, "The atheist complains about the wind. The Christian prays for it to change. The Satanist adjusts his sails."
Yeah, I actually read that and I thought, and I don't want to say I believe it because if someone were to say, oh, she believes in Satanism, then, that's all bad. But there is something to be said about, taking life and, you're in charge of your own life and which paths you follow and how you deal with things. I think it's a quote from Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it's Captain Jack Sparrow that says, the problem's not the problem is how you deal with the problem. And that's kind of what that reminded me of, actually.
Well, and I've read a lot of quotes about that lately on like inspirational groups and stuff that I'm a part of. It's been in movies throughout history or throughout the years. It's you got to change your cells or make your own wind basically.
Right. Now, for a little plug for Christianity, because that's my team, is prayer. You have to have faith. And you're not always going to get the answer to your prayer. And the way I believe, and the way my Christianity works, is you have to do everything that you can do, and then God will pick up the slack through the prayer. And so, we're asked to adjust our own cells, and if we fall short, then God will pick up the slack. So I think adjusting your cells can be Christian if you're...
Well, and that's
if you-
just his
if you
quote. This
believe
is how he viewed things.
Oh, I know. I'm just
so-
discussing.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah, because like I don't think what was it with atheists, that they just deny the wind?
Yeah.
There is no wind.
There's no wind.
And the Christians, the idea that all they do is just pray. Well, no, that things don't happen with just that too. So
I agree 100%. I just thought it was kind of interesting how just from that quote, you can see how he viewed his own religion as opposed to other religions.
Right. So here's a few facts. So one, it says legend or liar. Now, you remember earlier we talked about how a lot of this religion revolves around egotism. And it says that a lot of his claims about about his life have been disputed. You know, he would tell you things, but there hasn't been a whole lot of evidence really to back those up. So a lot of times when you're reading about him, you'll see the word allegedly used a lot because it's really hard to prove some of the stuff that he did.
or that he said he did.
Or that he said he did, exactly. So when he first founded the Church of Satan, he was really determined to get attention, because when you start something, whether it be a religion or a business or whatever, you want people to come to it, right? And so he would stage satanic rituals at nightclubs, which involved topless witches, bikini-clad inquisitors, and that would definitely get people's attention. So that's one of the things that he would do. It says, we're not weird like those guys. It says, despite their name, the Church of Satan does not identify as devil worshippers, and they go to great lengths to distinguish themselves from those said devil worshippers. And that's where I come in again, where it's like, maybe you should have picked a different name, because...
What I thought was hilarious is the video that I was watching or listening to. There's one of his, sermons where you literally hear him go, "Hell, Satan, the god of earth," and they're all chanting, "Hell, Satan," but they're not devil worshippers.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Feels like that's really weird. So another thing, they actually had some FBI profilers, and they said, a typical Satanist, what is it? And a typical Satanist is a Caucasian male in his 20s who discovered Satanism in his late teens. And to me that makes sense, because you get in that late teens, early 20s, that's when, your brain is kind of changing from that child brain to an adult brain. You're going from, I have to do what mom and dad says, to I'm an adult. And I remember being in that age and being a little nervous and, freaked out of, what goes on from here. So that kind of made a lot of sense to me as far as, trying to find yourself. And, just the way he's laid out his program of, you don't need to really follow those rules. You can follow these rules, which are a little, I can see how people could think that they were easier because they're a little bit more free thinking, would really speak to a lot of, teenagers, people in that age.
Yeah, topless witches will speak to.
I'm there. Sign me up.
Young men.
I'll take my $2 because that's how much it cost originally to get into the Church of Satan, was $2. Nowadays it costs you about $200, but still, $200. I get to hang out with topless witches. Probably do it. No, I wouldn't actually. Maybe when I was a teenager, but not now. No.
So,
did you know he actually kind of, some of the inspiration he got for founding this religion was some of the rituals that he did was from the Freemasons, the Knights Templar, and the Illuminati, I believe.
I think I read that, and a lot of, like you said, a lot of the rituals and ceremonies that they do, one of which he talks about in his book called The Satanic Rituals, is the baptism of children. And his daughter was the first person that was baptized into his satanic church.
So
do they baptize infants, or what was it when you said, did they go into that?
They didn't really go into detail, and I didn't really care to read the book. There's a picture of him, and I don't know if it was it was probably a staged photo, but in the picture his daughter looked to be somewhere between 5 and 8.
Yeah, she's just a little girl. So,
and you were talking about $2 to get in?
Yeah, so originally it was $2 to join.
It's $200 now.
It's $200, yeah.
So inflation.
Oh well.
From the 1960s to now, but $200.
Still, that's not a whole lot, I guess. $200 to live freely.
Or you could live freely for free and just not join his church.
Well, that's crazy talk.
So. A lot of people, and if you Google this, and this is actually one of the first little kooky facts that I wrote down about him, you'll see a lot on the internet that he played the devil in Rosemary's Baby, which is not true.
I'm starting to think that a lot of what he said is not true.
Right. So I went to IMDb, and if you're not aware of what IMDb is...
Satanist.
Well, you know what's funny is...
egotism.
From what I understood, or from what I read, that it never really got that big. I think it only obtained about 2,000 members while he was alive. I don't know what it is now.
I think I saw that it was
but
up to about 10,000, but that's been since he's passed.
But even still, 10,000 compared to the millions of people that live in the U.S. alone, like, it's not really that big of a religion.
No. But I looked up on IMDb, and he did do 2 little acting bits and 2 little bit parts, and he's done a few voice things. And IMDb is kind of like the Bible of who's in what movie and
Oh, it's my best friend when I'm watching a movie.
Right.
I don't know why it is. Anytime I'm watching a movie, even if I've watched a movie like 100 times, I've got IMDb.com up on my phone, and I'm like reading about the movie as I'm watching it.
Right. Well, what I like is you're watching a movie, and you're looking at an actress, and you say, I have seen her somewhere before. So you pull up the movie you're watching, you find the actress, you find out what her real name is, then you click her, and then it tells all the movies. You're like, oh, that's right, because we watched such and such a movie last week. I love IMDb. It's awesome.
The Internet Movie Database. I've been using that since the 2000s.
Okay, so the Church of Satan's infamous headquarters, known as the Black House, was actually in San Francisco. Supposedly, it was a former brothel. However, one of LaVey's relatives said it was not. So, shocker, something that he said may or may not be true. So, we don't know. It may have been a former brothel. It might have been. We don't know. He is said to have filled it with secret passageways and door traps. But again, we don't know. So we can't really give you any hard and fast facts other than books that he wrote and kind of the philosophy. But some of these, and it's funny because they call them 42 facts. And it's like, their 42 might be facts. So his second daughter, her name was Xena. I can't remember what his first daughter's name was. But she became a high priestess of the Church of Satan in 1985. Just in time for the Satan Panic, which hit the U.S. After a false report turned book from a satanic ritual abuse kind of freaked out. So I think that came out on the Entertainment Tonight, Phil Donahue show, if you remember that, and The Late Show. So I don't know. If it would have happened nowadays, we could have watched Jimmy Fallon and Xena kind of get into it, but... it happened back in those days when they took things a little more seriously. So, Xena.
We don't take things seriously now.
I think we take things less seriously. A lot less seriously.
It depends on what you're talking about.
True.
Because some things we're less serious about, but other things is just like, no, don't do it.
Right. But Xena, after a while, Anton, he kind of said, I'm not really too big into the, being in the public face. And Xena actually kind of became his promoter and to get into debates with Christians, which she tended to like to do. So she kind of became the face of Satanism for a while. So according to LaVey, which allegedly, this may or may not be true, one of his first ventures into the sinister side of men was when he worked as a musician in a strip club. And he also worked a second job playing music in a local church. So kind of like what you said, seeing the burlesque and then going to church and seeing the same men in both places. Okay, so just to finish off a few fun facts or alleged facts. One group of people which the Church of Satan attracts, even to this day, are atheists. And you might say, atheists belong to the Church of Satan. They don't believe in deity. But that's why, because they don't believe in deity, atheists can get on board with that. And ironically, so he passed away due to some heart problems, and I just think it's really ironic that he died in St. Mary's Medical Center, a Catholic hospital. So, there you go.
Well, that's interesting.
Some people say, and again, we don't know if this is true or not, it's allegedly, but some people say he had kind of a come to Jesus moment on his deathbed. Where he was saying, oh, something's wrong, something's very wrong. We don't know what that was. I was not there.
But that could very well also be people saying things about him that weren't necessarily true.
Right. So
A lot of things are said.
yeah. So some of those fun facts, they're fun facts. Whether or not they're true, nobody knows. Not just we don't know. We did research, but nobody knows.
And we also heard that he was a paranormal investigator.
Right. So, yeah, some of these fun facts kind of contradict his theology, but hey, whatever.
I did hear him say that when it comes to like psychic mediums and stuff like that, he's like, these people claim to have like gifts from God or that have these powers or whatever. He's like, maybe these people are just a little more perceptive than other people and know how to use it to their advantage. So he spoke out against other people as well that weren't him, that were doing psychic medium work.
Well, he talked in one that I was listening to, he actually talked about doing cold readings. And that's where you look at a person and you take cues from them and their appearance, and you make assertions, or you'll make comments and read their reactions and then continue to move. And some people can be literally cold read very well, and it's a practice like the FBI does it. I mean, there are people, it's a way to learn things and manipulate and find out things about people with these cold readings. And he says a lot of people will say, oh, I'm a psychic medium, but what they're actually doing is a cold reading of people. And
interesting.
They said they can do that. So it was a very interesting where he talked about that and those kinds of things. And again, not that it was magical or mystical, but it's a trained thing that you can learn through observation and whatever with these cold readings, which was quite interesting.
That's pretty cool. And that's how Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan tie into the paranormal.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's going to do it for Anton LaVey. I mean, there's a ton of more information that we could talk about, but we're running a little short on time.
We will see you next time.
All right. Peace out, butterflies.
Have a good one.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network, found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright by Advanced Paranormal Services.